Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Strong Collectors podcast. We've got a new HasLab announcement coming in at not quite the final hour, but I'd say we're in the very much the home stretch. Hasbro has, maybe they listened to us, maybe it was because of the Boog interview, but we see a digital render of the Wasp. So this is one that I think in our previous HasLab video, we had talked about, or at least in the comments, I was saying pretty frequently that I think Hasbro, although I know they don't want to put the figures in the actual campaign, and that makes sense. I like that idea. Cool. But they kept in all of these interviews and even on the live streams, they would keep kind of hinting at, oh, like this leaves the door open for a Wasp and a Yellow Jacket and Giant Man adjacent figures, or people would ask them like, "Oh, we're going to get figures like this," and they'd be like, "It's very possible that we get a Wasp. We could totally be working on that." And it's like, okay, if that's the plan, just say the plan. Like, yes, we will have a Wasp figure coming. Why would that? Why does that need to be under wraps? I never really got that. I thought it just kind of hurt the campaign a little bit because it just made everything feel more secretive rather than just be open about what's happening. I don't expect them to have an in-hand figure because it's going to be released next year. So just show us the digital render. Maybe they read my comments. Maybe it was because of the interviews they did. But we now see the classic looking Wasp. So this is kind of her pointy hat, red type suit with the black tights. And I don't know if they posted it or if Toy Shiz got it first and then Hasbro posted it. Because I first saw it on Toy Shiz, his Instagram. One of our followers actually sent it to me. So shout out to you. Maybe I'll take a screenshot of you and get you in here. But his thing reads, "Sting of the Wasp. Shout out to Hasbro for the photo. Here's a look at the upcoming Marvel Legends Avengers Classic Janet Van Dyne, the Wasp. More details on her availability at a later date. And no, this is not part of the Giant Man crowdfund. However, does this aid in your collection and in getting Giant Man funded in time? Assemble your thoughts down below." So, Jordan, you as a backer, or I mean, maybe you haven't backed yet, but you're planning to. How does this make you feel?
I think it's definitely cool to see, classic Wasp. I mean, I think I kind of agree with what you were saying. You know, if this was the plan, it would have made sense to sort of roll this out sooner. I know we talked about the idea of if they were going to reveal something like that, like New York Comic Con probably would have been a good time where it's like, hey, getting into the last week. Here's some figures. Like if you knew you were making those, it doesn't really make sense to have like kept it a secret.
Right.
I'm glad that it's not a tier though.
Yeah.
I liked their because I've seen also the comments saying, well, this should have been one of the tiers, but I feel like that would have made just as many people upset because then it's again, if you don't back it, then you don't get the figure. So I think coming in at this point with like 4 days left, it feels like, hey, we're doing whatever we can to try to get this one going. But I could see, I mean, I definitely get more excited about having the classic Giant Man with a classic Wasp too. But I could see a couple people who may or may not be on the fence being persuaded. I don't think it'll be like a giant, pun intended, jump. I don't think it's like, oh, this saved the campaign. But there might be some people who say, oh, well, now that I know I could get a classic Wasp,
Yeah.
it might be more likely. But again, I don't see that being like turning the tide for them.
Yeah. So I was just looking at the campaign before, kind of like I got home earlier. So I don't remember when I refreshed this, but probably around maybe 10:30, maybe 11 o'clock. And then this reveal kind of came out around 12:15. So when I refreshed my page, Giant Man was sitting at 63, 66. Let's see if there was a giant influx because of the Wasp. 63, 66 to 64. So you got 44 more backers so far. Not a huge jump, but the day is young.
Just
I
give us
think,
a couple more figures a day, and you'll be there in no time.
and that's it's probably because we haven't released this video yet. We're recording it right now, so how could the people know?
Right.
So
Exactly.
now that maybe we'll see a giant influx after this is posted. But yeah, it definitely feels much more like a desperation move. Where I think if this had been talked about at New York Comic Con, then some of those influencers that got to interview the team could have talked about it and like I don't know, just reiterated that it's not going to be.
Well, it would put more of a spotlight on it too,
Right.
to make it more of like, hey, now that you can see Giant Man in hand, guess what? You'll also be able to get a Wasp. Here's a digital render. Even show the digital render. Like,
Right.
I don't know. It seems weird to be like,
Mm-hmm.
we're this is our ace in our back pocket. It's a digital render of Wasp. Like, I don't know. That seems again like another strange marketing maneuver. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't
and
know.
I think, I mean, kind of going to our community posts on YouTube, I'd kind of asked how many people were going to be backing it and how many people weren't. And then I asked if you weren't going to be baking the Giant Man HasLab, why? I meant backing. Only a few people caught that, I think, though. So we got over 400 responses, and the main reason 39% of people said they just didn't need it. So at that point, there's really not a lot Hasbro can do to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
The next biggest one was there was no tiers, no Yellow Jacket, no Wasp, things like that. So I think maybe this kind of plays to that, or just like people really didn't care that much about the swappable faceplates or the eyes or the scroll head. They were kind of saying if you could get rid of the scroll head and add Wasp in, they would be more excited about it. But then the next biggest or the next most was it's too expensive or they just need the money elsewhere, which is sort of where I fall. And then I also fall into the last category, which was it's just too big. So I thought that was kind of interesting to see the breakdown of where people were not wanting to back the HasLab. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think those are all pretty valid complaints or valid points.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've literally, I don't know, I'm sure you have too, seen those arguments of people like, if everyone who has one just gets an extra one, we'll be there. It's
Right.
like that. That seems pretty goofy to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think some of those are jokes, but sometimes I feel like people being like, come on, guys, what are you doing? Back this.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, if you don't want to back it, they don't want to back it. And I think
Right.
there's valid reasons not to.
And I think,
But yeah, it seems like a lot of people agree with you, man, that if they'd scale them down a bit more, that would have probably been something that interested a lot more people.
yeah. I mean, and I'll keep saying this until Hasbro actually does it, but I just think they need to break outside of this box that they've created for themselves, which I think they tried to do with not offering figures as tiers. It kind of steps them outside of that box that they put themselves in because they've done it with everything else. But I think, or it sounds like from listening to them talk, they really think that it's like, oh, the collectors just want like the giant, like humongous action figure. And I've said several times, we're going to run out of space if we collect even just the three, like if we get Galactus, Sentinel, and if Giant Man actually gets funded, I can't display all three of those at the same time. And I would assume most collectors probably can't. And then even if you can, at some point you are going to run out of space with those giant figures. So why not, I don't know if it was one of the people in the comments or maybe it was me that said, make a Mephisto, give him a throne, give him some fire effects, some little demons to go with him. And it doesn't have to be a giant figure, but just make that one figure like super deluxe or something.
More of a specialty item.
Right.
Like, yeah, you wouldn't just find this in stores, but it's not necessarily 3 feet tall.
Right, exactly. So, and I don't know. I think to your point that the last episode we talked about this, it's supposed to go with an Avengers display, and having that big of a Giant Man makes it more of a Giant Man display with some other characters around him. I don't really. It's I don't know. You can definitely display it that way. It's just you're going to have to use that space. And if I've got to choose Galactus or Giant Man, I'm going to choose Galactus. But since you don't have Galactus, it's a little bit easier for you to display your bigger Giant Man. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to kind of see what Hasbro thinks about all that, but I doubt we'll ever actually hear from them about it. But I don't know. I think it's good that they at least showed Wasp, even though it's desperate. I think it works out better than if they had done it after the fact, and then people would have probably complained a lot harder of like, oh, if you had shown this during the campaign, maybe it would have backed. Still might fail, but at least now that they've shown it, they've tried what they can try. So let us know in the comments. Are you more or less persuaded? I don't really know why you'd be less persuaded, but are you more persuaded to back Giant Man if you haven't yet? Now that you see Wasp, you're going to get the classic version. Do you care about the classic Wasp version? Because I like this look. I just wish she was like 2 inches tall. And maybe that's a little, no, that's about right. Anyway, yeah, let me know what you think about this. Is it going to get backed? It's looking, I don't know. We don't have to wait too long to know. And we'll be back here to talk about whether it backed or not. So until then, make sure you're liking, sharing, and subscribing. And until next time, stay strong. Ladies and gentlemen, strip. Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, strip.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I thought that was for the after hours content.
I was going to say strong and new, but maybe I should just stick to the normal stuff.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's like the after hours content, right? Strip down, and I'm going to speak into this microphone real close.
Hello and
wherever
welcome back.
You go after.
Shut up, Jordan.
All right.
Hello and welcome.